It just seems to beg for tail-happy antics, and I feel compelled to accommodate. Pardon me. Ooh, got the voice commands asking for assistance. No, I'm fine, thank you. Hey crew, I've got the key to that 24 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392. We are going to take it for a drive, both on-road and off, but first, let's check out how it looks on the inside and outside. We'll know it's a 24 model based on the updated 7-slot grille, which is sandwiched between LED headlights, and themselves are flanked by LED turn signals on the fenders. This trim has steel bumpers with fog lights and gold accents for the recovery points. There's an optional worn 8,000-pound winch equipped here. The hood scoop is functional in two ways, either bringing cool air to the intake or diverting water away when fording. The 392 badge on the hood and Rubicon logos both have gold accents to contrast this hydro blue pearl paint job. You know I love my blues, but for me, right now, give me that dark green color for the 392. At the side are updated 17-inch beadlock capable wheel designs wrapped in BF Goodrich KO2 all-terrain tires. They say 35s, they're really 34.4-inch tires front and rear. The profile just looks so right with all that tire sidewall. It's a function of the Extreme Recon pack that's now standard for 24. The sliders come with a Rubicon trim, and with this Sky one-touch roof that's optional, the roof panels are painted. Here at the back are LED taillights and turn signals. There's a full-size spare tire on the tailgate, a gold recovery point, and 4 exhaust outlets. Plus, the trailer tow pack is now standard, so you can tow up to 3,500 pounds. The Wrangler Ruby 392's proportions are so pit bull, there's power down low. My question for you is about all Wranglers. Which looks better, the 2-door or 4-door? Let me know in the comments, and let's check out the interior. Opening up and looking inside at this red leather interior and open air cabin feel with that roof pulled back. The floor mats are all weather with a topography pattern on them. The doors have softer materials up high and harder plastics down low. There's a netted map pocket. The door lock is here, but the window switches are found in the center to more easily remove the doors. There are 4 USB ports, 2A, 2C, and an AC outlet, plus air vents. To get up and in, you do have a grab handle, but without steps. Hopefully you're taller, because even still, you gotta raise your leg real high and then avoid hitting your head on that rail. Behind my own seat, at 6 feet tall, I've got decent knee room, and the foot pockets are large to slide my feet under. But the seat bottoms are short, so the thigh support isn't great. I'll wait to show you headroom until the one-touch roof is back up. I can move into the middle because the drive shaft hump isn't too large. And here I can fit, and I think you could squeeze in 2 other full-size adults on either side of me, but more likely you'll want to have a kid in the middle or no one at all. There's also an armrest that comes down with 2 cup holders and leather padding. I do love that roof. And the speakers up top. Let's check out the front. Door close noise. That's that metal on metal sound. Smart keyless entry is for the front 2 doors. The front seats have Rubicon 392 stitched on them. They're heated and power adjusting. Love it, you get these little Easter eggs scattered all throughout the vehicle. They're power adjusting, not power folding door mirrors. I'll go open up the tailgate, which swings out first, and then you lift up the glass, which means you could then close this up and have the glass open for longer items like surfboards. Behind the second row, we've got 32 cubic feet of space, and if you've got long enough arms, you reach forward and fold down the seats 60, 44, 72 cubic feet of space. This is neat. The Wrangler 392's dimensions are printed here on the tailgate, just in case you need them. Grab handle up front as well, requiring another leg lift and head duck to get up and in. We'll put it in accessory mode to trigger yet another Easter egg of a Wrangler crawling across the TFT display in between an analog tack and speedo. There's a leather wrap steering wheel that's heated. It's got half paddles on the back of the wheel, manual adjustments to that. New for 24 is a 12.3-inch Uconnect 5 software infotainment system that is quick to respond, and it's got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. To the right of that screen is perforated leather with contrast stitching and a grab handle, and underneath are chunky physical controls for media, climate, and drive settings. Further down are 4 window switches, a DC outlet, and 2 more USB ports, 1A, 1C, plus an aux jack. Underneath that are your locking differentials, off-road modes, and 4 auxiliary switches.
There's a Willys icon on top of the gear selector. Over here is your 2-speed transfer case, manual handbrake, 2 cup holders, and under the leather top console, we've got 2 levels of storage with another USB-A port. Visibility is fantastic, and there's standard blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic. I think now we should return the one-touch roof to its original position to see about that headroom. That's a thumbs up in the back and up front. So the cabin has the goods, and the new infotainment system for 24 is welcome. But is this worth $95,000 as tested? That's what we're going to find out with the drive next. All right, let's fire it up. Thunder from heaven has descended upon earth. It's the internal monologue I have every time I start this up. Hello, cabin crew. Thank you for joining me for this drive in the 24 Jeep Wrangler 392. And we are starting, as you can see, with the one-touch sky roof pulled back. And our drive mode, really, there's only the transfer case to choose from. Oh, I guess there's an off-road plus mode. We'll get into that later. Here on the road, we're just going to start in the 4-high auto setting, which is basically rear drive unless it detects slip from the front tires. Then it gives you all 4 driven wheels. So to go in reverse, pull back on that selector. That brings up a high-resolution camera system. Not the highest, but it's pretty high. And we've got a front-facing camera as well, both with grid or trajectory lines. We're going to back on out of here. And as usual, start with a turning radius test. Give ourselves a little room over here. Straighten up and crank it. That's pretty good. That's really pretty good. Yeah, it's not the longest wheelbase ever, but given the giant tires that are turning in their arches, it's a great turning radius. And let's do the world famous horn test right here, because we got gardening out on the street and I don't want to disturb them or have them disturb us. Oh my. Well, probably louder since the top is down, but it's still a trumpeting horn. Let's talk about that motor. It is a 6.4 liter HEMI V8 that makes 470 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. It's routed through an 8-speed automatic gearbox and sent via the 2-speed transfer case to all 4 tires. I just had this thought. So Dodge is discontinuing the Charger and Challenger, and in theory that would discontinue the 6.4 liter HEMI V8, but not if Jeep continues to make this model, at least for however many more years they're going to do it. So the V8 lives on in the Wrangler 392, and what an engine. NA, so it's just very linear in the power delivery, unless you put your foot a little too far down on the throttle, and then it's quite a lot. And that exhaust is an active valve system, so just at measured throttle input, it's pretty darn quiet, and then it gets real loud. It also can get louder if you would like that. You hit this button here and it opens up those baffles. The baritone sets in. Oh, and it's a deep snarl. I like that a lot. I also like this ride quality. Yeah, we got a lot of sidewall on these 17-inch wheels, but it's also the suspension. So it's a Fox 2.0 aluminum-bodied monotube setup. No remote reservoirs, none of that fanciness. But the ride is still excellent. We got this light, it's no problem. The bumps don't really seem to rattle me much. It's pretty well dampened. And I am moving around a little bit on this solid rear axle vehicle. But it doesn't feel busy at all. This is so composed, shockingly so. And I love the open top right now. There is that wind buffeting noise. That is a constant thing. But at these speeds, at least, it's not obtrusive. It's just bringing in some moving air inside the cabin and giving you that convertible top feel in your hardcore off-roader. And as the speeds pick up, The wind noise does as well. Now you're having to raise your voice to have a conversation, at least with this passenger in the back. You're shouting. You're 100% shouting. So keep that in mind. But I love how easy this is to drive. This engine it's a softie when you want it to be. And the 8-speed automatic smoothly shifts through those gears. Don't really notice it working. Dare I say comfortable. And the seats are great as well. Supportive, ergonomic. The adjustability is sufficient. There's not a ton, so hopefully your body type matches the thigh extension that we have in the built-in cushion, and you're not overly wide, so the bolstered sides don't dig into you. And in the mid-range, if you want to just play around with that, I'm not going to, no, okay, fine, we'll do it. Manual mode, using the half paddles here on the wheel, prompting, I got a lot of gears to shift down through. And the shifts aren't crazy quick. Down or up, but man, what a noise on the upshift. It is a snap. Let's open up the exhaust again. There's some sporty DNA into this vehicle. Listen to the snaps, the snarls on the upshift. Listen to that. Oh, it's so good. Oh, this is made for children like myself. Yeah, the manual gear shifts are not quick. And that's okay. I don't care. That's too much fun. And in the name of fun, let's give the Wrangler 392 a real-world rip to 60 miles per hour before I then go full ABS with the brakes to test two things at once. I've got my race box set up here to record, and I'm not going to mess with any drive configurations. I'm just going to put my foot down and see what happens. Here we go. And there's 60 in 5 seconds flat. Wow! Here we go with the brakes. That was from around 50, and okay. So, the pedal had a little bit of squish to it. The all-terrain tires did what I expected them to do, which is to claw into asphalt and not really work all that well. But what was really impressive to me was how little nosedive you had given the V8 and all the weight over the nose. What they did was increase the spring rates up front to counteract that, and I think it worked. I felt decently confident in those brakes. Higher speeds, just be prepared and act fast. Now there's one final on-road parameter left to explore before we go off-road, and that is seeing how this truck does on the highway. Thankfully, you can work the Sky One Touch roof at speeds up to 60 miles per hour. So even here at this speed, the roof is on its way to close. There it is, before we get on the highway. Okay, the first thing I'm looking for here is the NVH level at these speeds. So let me quiet up and we'll listen in. Most clearly heard is the wind noise, and that doesn't surprise me given the almost straight up and down windows of the Wrangler. The wind is just pelting against those and generating some volume. The tire hum is discernible but not egregious. And I do feel like this cabin is quieter than the last Wrangler I drove even last year, and that's because they improved the active noise cancellation inside here, and it's working. This is something I could tolerate every single day. It wouldn't be the most relaxing thing to commute in, but it's something you could do it in, and you do have things like adaptive cruise control to help you out. I'm pretty impressed, especially for something with both front and rear solid axles, unlike the Bronco or even Bronco Raptor, which has an independent front suspension, which is a little more compliant, a little easier to steer. This, with those solid axles, takes more work. but not as much as I remember. Wranglers from even 2 or 3 years ago required so much steering input and just monitoring to keep the truck tracking straight, and they've really done a number on this. And now we can turn our attention to the dirt. This is going to be a mild fire road to get us to some more technical sections where the Jeep Wrangler 392 can flaunt its DNA. I've taken a little bit of air out of these KO2 tires, not enough to trigger a warning from the pressure monitoring system, but enough to give me a little more cushion and give us a little more of the sidewall to use here off-road. I'm keeping us in 4 high auto to start things off, just to see how that behaves, and then we'll move into 4 high part-time, which is kind of ironic because it's actually 4 high all the time when it's in 4 high part-time. I digress. All right, let's go into drive and head on out. Things I did not yet share with you that make a difference both on-road and off. For the 392 with this Extreme Recon pack now standard, they move from the 3.73 rear axle ratio to 4.56, and that is why when we were cruising at 70 miles per hour on the highway, we weren't chilling at 4,000 RPM. It's more sane, what, 3,000, 2,500? They reinforced this frame, stiffened it in specific places to handle the weight of the V8 over the nose as well. I mentioned they increased the front spring rates. They actually decreased the spring rates in the rear and added a stiffer rear sway bar. My initial impression about how the Wrangler 392 handles the washboards and the undulations is so favorable. The little air I pulled out of the tires is definitely helping, but these Fox 2.0 monotube shocks are more agreeable than the Tenneco shocks you get in the standard Rubicon. Just absorbing the bumps and bruises even better. And once again, I return to it being solid front and rear axle. You'd think it'd be a bit more punishment compared to the Bronco Raptor, both being ladder frame chassis trucks, but the Bronco Raptor having that independent front suspension just for greater composure. Here, just off-road, it's so tolerable. You get the occasional big bump, but filtered through all that tire sidewall, the nice cushy chairs, and the suspension, this is no big deal at all. And very easy to work the Wrangler along a serpentine road. And if it started to close in on me, I'd be very thankful for the narrow dimensions of the Wrangler. You forget how narrow these trucks are, at least I do, until I get back behind the wheel and I'm sitting right next to my passenger. And that really pays dividends when you're off-road and hoping to not pinstripe your beautiful paint job. Already, on more than one occasion, I have noted that in 4 high auto, where it's rear drive unless it detects slip from the front tires, traction control has cut in, like it's doing a few times here, to cut power. And so I think that we now need to move into the 4 high part-time setting, which is, as I said, full-time 4-wheel drive, and see if that occurrence goes away. Also pick up the speed a little bit. No, it's still managing to trigger the traction control system, even with just a little bit of slip detected, suggesting that the Wrangler really likes to be going a bit slower, which it really is suited well to. The dimensions, the approach departure angle, the locking differentials, it just wants to crawl. And we'll let it do that momentarily. But before we do, I want to switch into the off-road plus mode. What that is going to do is turn traction control off, thankfully, increase throttle response, and let the hoon flag fly a little bit. This is more my speed. Even though the Wrangler 392 isn't built to do this necessarily, sliding and hopping, it does it just fine. And that HEMI noise, which I want to hear more, so let's open up the baffles again. It's just the constant encourager of misbehavior. I will admit, the Bronco Raptor does these kind of things better with greater confidence, but the 392 will do it. I love that noise so much. It just seems to beg for tail happy antics, and I feel compelled to accommodate. Pardon me. Ooh, got the voice commands asking for assistance. No, I'm fine, thank you. More than fine, in fact. I'm having a great time. Oh, it's doing so well. I'm loving it. Now, it's this kind of foolishness that has me thankful for the beefier Dana 44 front axle on the 392 that's pulled off the Gladiator Mojave just to handle the punishment that I continue to dish it. But it's going to be the other tools in the Rubicon 392's arsenal that I'll be using for the lower speed, highly technical articulation activities that are up next. Now, up ahead is what I would call a small off-road playground, and I want to play on it, so I need to bring out my toys. The first thing I'm going to do is move into four-wheel drive low, so I'll just go forward a little bit, get into neutral, and then bring it on down, and back into drive. We'll lock that in. There we go, in four low, and I also can lock up my front and rear differential so that we don't have any slip from the tires. And the last thing I can do is disconnect the front sway bar. All of that you can monitor here on this screen. See that those two axles are locked and the sway bar is still connected, but in just a moment here, there it is, disconnected, and it's going to reflect there as well. I will then plot out the route I want to take and bring up the front-facing camera just to monitor our progress. Okay, I've found the route I want to take up, and of course, if you're off-roading, you want to be facing your obstacle directly, none of this angle stuff so you don't tip over. And now I can just carefully, with my crawl ratio of 48:1, work my way up here, bringing back up that front-facing camera, letting those front tires articulate all the better without being connected by the sway bar. The slightly decreased tire pressured KO2s dig in, and anytime there's just a little bit of slip, the power is routed to the tire with the grip, and you easily make your way up what would be, for other vehicles, very challenging obstacles. Now, if at any point in time I didn't lack confidence in what the Wrangler 392 could do off-road, which makes sense because it could do a lot, but I did lack confidence in my own skill set, which is more often than not, then I could use something like the off-road cruise control function, which will manage the throttle and brake both uphill and downhill, so I can just focus on steering. I'll bring up the front-facing camera once again to monitor our descent down this precipitous little hill. Not worrying about the throttle or brake, only worrying about the angle of the tires. And being very grateful for excellent approach angle, departure angle. And even if I were to brush up against something, I would have the sliders on the side to protect us. And on top of all this, dimensionally and resourcefully, the 392 just has the power to pull you up over things that a lesser potent off-road rig could not. Am I watching a Cyclone in action? Yes, tell me you saw that on the GoPro. It's just happening right in front of me. So cool. But anyway, back to the Wrangler 392. You have the power. So if you're looking at deep mud or deep sand, you just keep your foot in it and you get yourself through whatever is challenging you every time. And that is going to lead into my miles per hour word of the day, which for the 24 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392 is abrasive, meaning showing little concern for the feelings of others. Because you take one look at this truck and you hear one pass of this abrasive HEMI soundtrack, and you don't really have a question mark about whether it would dip a tender ear to your concerns about what it is or what it shows that it wants to be. You just understand it to be something that doesn't really care, and I kind of love it. We'll get to competitors in just a sec, but first, the top speed, fuel economy, and starting figure. The top speed for the Wrangler 392 is 111 miles per hour. Don't hit that on this kind of terrain. The fuel economy is 13 mpg in the city, 16 on the highway, and a paltry 14 combined. And the starting price, $89,000. This one has tested a little under 96 grand. Now on to the competitors. So I've already mentioned one of them a few times during this review. That is the direct rival, the Ford Bronco Raptor, which starts for 24, I think right around $89,000 as well. It makes a little less power, 418 horsepower, gets to 60 a little slower, 5.6 seconds, but gets one more combined mpg, so 15 total for that one. Then there's also, if you want to kind of throw it in there, the Land Rover Defender 110 V8 model that starts just under $113,000. It makes 518 horsepower though with a supercharged V8. Gets to 60 in 4.5 seconds and has fuel economy of 16 combined. I'm going to rule out the Defender 110 V8 pretty quickly here because while it is a sensational sounding vehicle, I do love the engine note there, and it feels more posh and probably could split the difference between showing up to a nice dinner and then going off-roading the next day better than the Bronco Raptor or the Wrangler 392. This decision for this kind of vehicle, I feel like, is fueled by emotion, and I don't think the Defender 110 V8 has enough emotion to pull me away from one of these two trucks. It's the choice between these two trucks that's so difficult and really depends on what you want to do with them off-road, because on-road the Bronco with its independent front suspension's a little more compliant day in and day out, while the active noise canceling that's been added to the Wrangler for 24 might make it a little bit quieter than the Bronco with either the soft or hard top clincher. Exterior styling wise, they're both very, very cool. It really just depends on which you find to be more visually appealing. And interior wise, with the upgraded infotainment system for 24, the Wrangler is definitely on par with the Bronco, whereas before I thought the Bronco was a little bit nicer, a little more interesting. Off-road though, do you prefer to crawl? Because if that's your cup of tea, then the Wrangler 392 cannot be beat. But do you like going fast and jumping and sliding? Things that the Wrangler 392 can be forced into doing but doesn't really feel natural doing. Those are things the Bronco Raptor is just better suited to, and those are the things that I find to be more entertaining. So I think it's small, but the margin favors the Bronco Raptor for me. Which would you guys choose though? Would you go with the Wrangler 392? Would you get the Bronco Raptor? Or would you spend the extra money on the Land Rover Defender 110 V8? Let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this POV drive review. If you did, please like, comment, and share it. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell to get notified. And I'll see you next time. Thunder from heaven!